On the day of my mate bonding ceremony, someone threw a corrosive potion at me, leaving my face disfigured. In front of everyone, Oliver Fielding, my fated mate, the one promised to me for 8 years, coldly rejected me and claimed the Alpha's younger stepsister, Isabella Dorsey, instead. That same night, Alpha Lucas Dorsey placed a moonstone ring in my hand. If Oliver won't claim you, then I will. And I'll make sure you get justice. He brushes his fingers over my corroded, scarred cheek and whispers tenderly, Evelyn, even in such a state, you're more beautiful than anyone else. Since he claimed me, Lucas has treated me like something sacred. He remembers every little thing I love and hate. Even when the painful memories overwhelm me and I lash out in panic, he just presses a kiss to my palm, his pain lingering in the touch. How could I not be completely lost to him? However, 3 years later, I overhear Lucas speaking with his assassin outside the council chamber. That silver-laced corrosive potion I had you prepare, was the dosage correct? The assassin hesitates before replying, Alpha, if you care about Evelyn so much, why would you? Isabella wants Oliver, so I'll help her by removing the obstacle, Evelyn. He runs his thumb over the herbal sachet I made him and murmurs, it's just I've grown strangely reluctant to let Evelyn go. She's my pawn, after all. I wipe away my tears. If I'm nothing more than an obstacle to him, I'll save him the trouble and walk away on my own. Chapter 1. Alpha, the assassin started carefully, hesitation coloring his voice. Sarah, Luna's maid, just reported that Luna seems to have good news for you. Lucas' thumb, which had been absently tracing the herbal sachet, went still. His eyes darkened, like storm clouds rolling in. Good news? What possible good news could there be? You know better than I do what was in that corrosive potion. The silver alone was enough to kill her wolf and leave her barren. Alpha, shouldn't we be celebrating if Luna is truly pregnant? I don't get why you're so troubled. The assassin didn't even finish his sentence before a heavy thud shook the council chamber. Lucas had already kicked him to the ground. The assassin clutched his chest, not daring to make a sound. Pacing furiously, Lucas snarled, even if she's pregnant, her wolf is wounded. The pup would be born pathetically weak. No matter what, that pup doesn't get to live. His voice was icy and sharp, cutting into my ears like death's whisper. My back slid slowly down the wall as my mind went blank, my consciousness flickering on the edge of collapse. Before anyone could find me, I stumbled back to my place in a daze, shooing away the maids. I couldn't let them see me in this state, crying and completely falling apart. Apparently, the man I believed was my savior 3 years ago, Lucas, was actually the demon who cast me into the abyss. Every ounce of suffering I endured was because of him. Since we became mates 3 years ago, everyone in the pack kept telling me how lucky I was. They said even though the corrosive potion had disfigured my face and damaged my wolf, I still got to marry Lucas, a handsome, powerful, undefeated alpha, and become their revered Luna. But the truth was, he had planned it all, my disfigurement, Oliver's rejection, the soul-crushing agony, just to make way for his beloved younger stepsister Isabella to become Beta Oliver's mate. The memory of Lucas tracing my scars with those tender, focused eyes made my heart feel ripped open, leaving a hollow pit where the cold wind howled. I woke with a start in the dead of night, my skin clammy with cold sweat after the nightmare. Beside me, Lucas stirred, but there wasn't a hint of irritation in his expression. Instead, he took my hand, his voice calm and steady. Evelyn, what's wrong? Was it the nightmare again? Don't be scared. I'm right here. No one's going to hurt you. When he felt me tense, his voice grew even gentler. Don't worry. I'll be getting leave from pack headquarters soon, and then I'll take you to the seaside. We'll leave all those painful memories behind. As I met his gentle gaze, I almost wondered if everything I'd overheard outside the council chamber that evening had just been my imagination. I ran my hand over my still flat stomach, unable to resist testing his reaction. Would you be happy if we had a pup? The second the words were out of my mouth, Lucas stiffened, his brow furrowing before he could stop it. But then, just as quickly, his expression softened into delighted surprise. Of course I would, he said, his voice warm with excitement. Evelyn, are you telling me you're pregnant with my pup? Lucas managed an expectant look, but that scrutinizing gleam in his eyes gave him away. I saw right through him. He was suspicious. But I wasn't about to lose this pup yet, so I deflected with a playful look. I was just curious. Why so serious? Chapter 2. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed. Lucas must have already left for the pack council. My maid, Sarah Miller, slipped quietly into the room and set out breakfast. When she noticed I was awake, her face brightened with a warm smile. But as she handed me a glass of deep purple potion, a hint of worry flashed in her eyes. Luna, the chief healer from our pack, brewed this potion for you on the Alpha's orders. Sarah's voice was soft, thick with unmistakable concern. The liquid in the clear glass was an eerie deep purple, its pungent smell alone enough to make me uneasy. A single glance was all it took for me to wave her off. Sarah bit her lip, her eyes clouded with conflict and reluctance. After a hesitant pause, she spoke gently. Luna, the Alpha specifically ordered me to watch you drink this before he left. The moment she said that, I knew something was off about the potion. No wonder I kept waking up last night, drifting in and out of sleep with the feeling that someone was examining my body. Sarah must have noticed something too. That was why she looked so worried. Last night, that person pinned me down with terrifying strength, leaving me unable to move. Now that I thought about it, that was no dream. How could I have forgotten? Lucas might not have been a healer, but as an Alpha who'd seen his share of battlefields, he knew the basics of examining someone. I'm a little dizzy right now. Just leave it there. I'll drink it later, I said. But I had no intention of drinking that potion. Ever since that corrosive potion had been thrown on me, my health had been failing. I wasn't the same person anymore. I relied on potions to keep going, but none had ever been like this one, reeking so foul it curdled my blood. This had to be an abortion potion. The healer once told me my wolf was damaged, and that I might never have a pup of my own. This one felt like my last hope, a gift from the moon goddess herself. I'd been an orphan since I was young, with no family to call my own. But now, against all odds, I had one. And even if the chance were slim, I'd fight with everything I had to keep it safe. After a moment, Sarah's voice sounded from the other side of the door. Alpha, Luna isn't feeling well. She won't take the potion. Got it. Bring in the potion, then everyone out. I yanked the blanket over my head, pretending to be fast asleep. Lucas settled beside the bed, his cool fingers brushing my cheek and lips with a tenderness that made my heart ache. I instinctively tried to pull back, but then his voice, deep and quiet, brushed against my ear. Evelyn, are you awake? He wrapped me in his arms, his touch warm and tender. Sarah told me you refused to drink the potion. It was specially brewed for you by the pack's chief healer. Come on, be good, Evelyn. Drink it, okay? A shiver ran through me, but I forced a smile for the pup's sake. Lucas, it's not that I don't want to. It's just the smell is terrible. He snapped his fingers at that, and several maids hurried in with trays of assorted sweets. His gaze held unspoken meaning as he watched me. I had these prepared for you. There's nothing to worry about. But I really don't want to drink it. Lucas' expression turned cold instantly, his voice sharp with warning. Evelyn, don't test me. My patience only stretches so far. With that, he grabbed my chin and forced the potion down my throat. The bitter liquid burned as it went down, making my eyes water. I clutched my throat, coughing violently. but Lucas thought I was trying to spit it out. His smile was gentle, but it chilled me to the bone. Evelyn, if you dare throw that up, I'll make you drink it again. In the end, I couldn't keep the pup, and my heart went out to the little thing. Gritting my teeth, I forced down the searing pain in my chest, swallowing my tears along with the bitter potion. Chapter 3. At midnight, a sharp pain jolted me awake. When I opened my eyes, I saw horrifying streaks of blood staining the sheets. It was still gushing out between my legs. I reached for Lucas beside me, but his side of the bed was empty. The sheets were cold. I had no idea how long he'd been gone. Writhing in pain, I woke Emma Gray, the maid I trusted most. She'd been with me since childhood. There was no one I relied on more. Emma hurried out, only to return moments later, her face tight with worry. Luna, the estate surrounded by attendants. They say no one can leave without Alpha's orders. Another wave of pain tore through me. Gasping, I barely managed to grind out, why would they do this? They said Isabella is due to have her pup any moment, so the Alpha took the whole guard to stand watch at her place. We're short-handed, and the Alpha is worried about your safety, Luna. That's why he ordered the attendants to stay at all times. Then tell them to send a healer. Just then, Sarah rushed in, out of breath. Luna, I already told them, but they refused. The pain in my abdomen was like a knife slicing straight through me. I gripped the sheets, barely able to breathe through the agony. Only then did it hit me. Lucas wasn't actually worried about me. He was just afraid I'd hurt Isabella. A bitter smile twisted my lips. You're really something else, Lucas. Another wave of white-hot pain ripped through me, and the world went dark. By the time Lucas returned with his guards, I'd already been out cold for a full day. Still groggy, I caught the sound of an argument. You incompetent fools. What part of my orders didn't you understand? You actually dragged in some random healer to treat Evelyn. Lucas' voice was rough with anger, and everyone around him shrank back under his fury. After a brief silence, Sarah answered timidly, Alpha, we didn't have a choice. There were no other healers available. Lucas froze as he remembered his father's order that morning that all healers stand guard outside Isabella's door. His tone softened slightly, but the threat remained. If anything happens to Evelyn, you'll all pay for it. When I opened my eyes, Lucas was gazing absently out the window. The second he noticed I was awake, his face brightened with relief. Evelyn, you're finally awake. How are you feeling? I ignored him and turned to call for Emma, but Sarah spoke up first. Luna, do you need water? I'll get you some right now. I shook my head. After a full day and night of crying and screaming, my throat burned too much to speak. I just wanted to see Emma. She was the only one who made me feel safe. The maid's uneasy expression sent a sickening dread through me, so I called Emma's name again, louder this time. But no one answered, even after I waited. This felt strange. Emma had always been my personal maid, following me like a second shadow. So, why wasn't she here today? Sarah glanced at me, then at Lucas, and only spoke after he gave her a nod. Her voice shook. Luna, Emma she's dead. What did you just say? I shot upright, the sudden movement sending a sharp pain through my already aching stomach. Emma got into a fight with the attendants while trying to fetch a healer for you. Someone pushed her, and she fell down the stairs. The attendants were afraid it would turn into a death, so they sent us out to find a healer. Tears ran down my face. I tried to speak, but a mouthful of blood gushed up my throat. Lucas quickly reached out to wipe it away, but I flinched back. Evelyn, don't take it so hard. Emma's gone. Right now, you need to focus on getting better. The healer said your injuries are bad. You have to rest and stay calm. I closed my eyes and gave a bitter smile. You're right, Alpha. I'm tired. Please just go. Alpha? You're calling me that now, Evelyn? Lucas's voice shook with disbelief. Are you saying this is my fault? I wouldn't dare. I'm just a helpless Omega. How could I ever blame an Alpha? Lucas frowned, his eyes locked on mine as if searching for something in my expression. Evelyn, I know you just lost the pup, and you're not yourself right now, so I'll let it slide. I'll come by tomorrow. With that, he turned to leave. Tomorrow? I probably wouldn't even last that long. Summoning the last of my strength, I choked out, don't bother. I know I'm not going to make it, and I don't deserve to keep Luna's place. So, let's break the mate bond. Just reject me. That's all you have to do. Lucas froze mid-step and whirled around, his eyes blazing as he sneered, break the mate bond. That's fucking bullshit. You must be out of your damn mind. He turned on the others and barked, starting today, Evelyn stays here to recover. Nobody lets her leave without my say. Chapter 4. For 5 days, Lucas didn't visit me. The estate had been unnervingly quiet since I'd lost my pup, and most of the maids were transferred elsewhere under various pretexts. Now, only Sarah stayed by my side. Once, I asked her, everyone else is gone. Why are you still here? Sarah didn't answer. Instead, she kept urging me to eat. Luna, the Alpha's just being stubborn. Please don't starve yourself to spite him. As soon as she finished speaking, familiar footsteps sounded outside the door. I looked up and met Lucas' icy gaze. Why aren't you eating? I ignored him and turned to leave. But he grabbed my wrist, his grip so tight it felt like he was trying to crush my bones. Evelyn, I'm talking to you. The pain was sharp, but I clenched my teeth and stayed silent. My body was already covered in scars, and he'd shattered my heart long ago. Now, when I was looking at him, all I felt was exhaustion. What's the point, Alpha? I'm just someone you despise. Why should it matter if I live or die? You don't care anyway, so why not let me die too? At least then you won't have to stare at me like I disgust you. Lucas stiffened, as if he hadn't expected me to be so harsh. His grip on my wrist trembled slightly. But in a flash, the ice in his eyes hardened further. He roared, you wouldn't dare, Evelyn. If you die, I'll make sure Sarah joins you in the grave. My heart was nothing but ashes. When did that once noble, fearless Alpha, the man I believed was my savior, become so cold and cruel? I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face. I was too broken to go on. Lucas panicked at the sight of me. He pulled me into a crushing embrace, his voice cracking with tears. Evelyn, stop this. Don't hurt yourself. Please, I shoved him back hard, stumbling a few steps as I glared at him, fury burning in my chest. Hurt? You don't get to say that. If it weren't for you, would I have been disfigured by that corrosive potion? Would I have been rejected and left to rot like this? The memories ripped open old wounds in my heart, and fresh pain bled through. So, now you know everything. Lucas' face went ghostly white. He wanted to explain, but didn't know where to start. Panic and regret flashed in his eyes, only to be quickly smothered by hot, defensive anger. He spun towards Sarah, who stood shaking nearby, and snarled, why the hell are you still here? Get out. Sarah stammered frantic apologies before bolting from the room. Watching him take his anger out on others only deepened the hatred in my heart. Lucas, aren't you afraid I'll hate you for this? His body tensed, but then he straightened his back, his eyes burning with obsession and madness. Hate me all you want. You're never leaving me, not in this lifetime, anyway. And Lucas meant every word. He had the maids bring only a small amount of milk and green juice each day to break me. I didn't care. This body of mine wouldn't last much longer anyway. But I couldn't bear watching poor Sarah grow thinner by the day while I stood helpless. That night, Sarah came down with a sudden high fever. As I watched her breathing grow weaker, I realized she might die right there if she didn't get help soon. But the attendants at the door would never let us leave. With no other choice, I lit the bed curtains on fire. I turned to Sarah and asked, "Are you scared?" She shook her head. "I'd follow you even to death, Luna." The moonlight was faint that night. If the estate went up in flames, the guards at the door would surely rush inside to help. We'd have our chance to slip away amid the chaos. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. I piled up all the clothes, the documents, even those antique books I'd spent years collecting just to please Lucas, then threw them into the fire. As the flames roared to life, a fierce satisfaction surged through me. Fire! It didn't take long for someone to notice and erupt into shouts. Sarah and I saw our chance as the attendants ran to check the fire. We sprinted through the thick smoke to the stables and grabbed the strongest horse. Then we escaped through the hidden passage. The night wind roared, tearing at my hair as it streamed wildly behind me like freedom's banner. I thought we were finally free, so I dug my heels harder into the horse's sides. But then Lucas' furious voice cut through the air behind us, distant but seething. "Evelyn, stop now, and I'll forget all this." Chapter 5. The sound of Lucas' voice sent an instinctive shudder through my wolf. In seconds, his scent was already closing in. Lucas' face was terrifyingly dark as he galloped after me, moonlight glinting off the cold steel of his bow. His eyes were icy, yet flickering with a hint of barely concealed pain. "Evelyn, did you really think you could run from me?" My hands were raw and bleeding from gripping the reins, but I didn't dare slow down, not even for a second. When Lucas saw this, he let out a scoff, drew his bowstring tight, and fired an arrow straight at us. I gritted my teeth, bracing for the impact, but the pain never came. Instead, there was a muffled grunt. The arrow had missed me entirely and struck Sarah in the arm. Blood bloomed across her sleeve instantly. "Sarah!" I cried out in panic, steadying her swaying body with one hand. Her face was ghostly pale, but she forced a faint smile. "Don't worry about me, Luna. Just go." Just then, a carriage came barreling toward us. The person inside yelled, "Alpha, it's bad. Isabella's pup is having an asthma attack. She's lost control. You need to get there now." Lucas froze at those words, a flash of panic in his eyes. After a split second of hesitation, he clenched his jaw, turned, and shifted into his wolf. He tore off in the direction the messenger had come from, leaving only one of his men to chase us. Lucas' scent grew fainter, but my chest stayed tight. His man was right behind me. He'd catch up any second now. Then, under the streetlight, he got a clear look at my face and stopped dead, as if struck by lightning. I watched him warily, surprised to see his eyes flicker with something complicated, shock, guilt, and a deep, gnawing self-blame. We stared at each other for a long moment before his voice came out rough. "Just go." I didn't ask why. I already knew who he was, the assassin who'd spoken to Lucas in the council chamber. He'd helped Lucas hurt me once, and now, by letting me go, he'd made us even. But I couldn't stop worrying. What would Lucas do to him after finding out? The assassin seemed to read my thoughts. He said slowly, "Don't worry. After you're gone, I'll find 2 bodies that look close enough. Once I treat them with the corrosive potion, not even the Alpha will be able to tell the difference. Don't look back, Luna. Find somewhere safe and live." I stared at him, emotions churning, 1,000 words caught in my throat. In the end, I just gave a small nod, steadied Sarah, and climbed back onto the horse. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I wouldn't turn back this time. Chapter 6. When Lucas burst into the Beta's estate in a panic, Isabella was calming the pup, who had just stopped crying. Seeing Lucas's frantic expression, she felt a flicker of satisfaction, but kept her face carefully concerned. Why the rush, Lucas? I told them to let you know there was nothing to worry about. Only then did Lucas notice his shirt was drenched in cold sweat. Not wanting Isabella to know he'd been chasing after me, he brushed it off and asked about the pup instead. As they spoke, hurried footsteps echoed outside the door. It was one of Lucas' men. The man waited just outside, ready for orders. Lucas figured they must have already caught me. Some of the tension left his body, and he let out a quiet sigh of relief without thinking. Deep down, he felt a smug flicker of satisfaction. He really thought I'd never escape him. Alpha, Luna, before his man could finish, Lucas cut him off. Don't bother explaining. Throw them in the basement and treat them like the traitors they are. He absently toyed with the moonstone bracelet on his wrist. Let them think about what they've done. The man realized Lucas had misunderstood and tried to explain, but Lucas cut him off with a cold warning. One more word, and you'll join them in the basement. Left with no choice, the man backed away. For 2 days, Lucas refused to mention me as if ignoring me was his way of punishing my betrayal. One day, Lucas was spending time with Isabella as usual. As he cradled the pup in his arms, the pup suddenly reached up and pawed at the pendant around Lucas' neck. It was a moonstone pendant I'd had custom-made by the finest craftsman. I'd even taken it to the moon goddess temple to be engraved with protective runes to keep him safe. And yet, despite loving him that deeply, I'd still run from him. The thought stirred a faint scorn in his eyes. When Isabella saw that, she quickly reached for it, but Lucas just smiled and waved her off. Don't worry about it. If he likes it, he can keep it. But the moment Lucas unfastened the pendant, the pup suddenly dropped it. The pendant hit the ground with a sharp crack, the moonstone shattering into pieces. A sudden wave of unease swept over Lucas, as if something precious was about to be lost forever. He quickly called for his man, his voice tight with anxiety. How's Evelyn doing? The guard watching the basement didn't realize how much I meant to Lucas and answered casually, Relax, Alpha. She hasn't had water in days, and she's injured. She'll soon admit she was wrong. But instead of calming down, Lucas only grew more agitated. It was strange. I was the one suffering, yet he was the one on edge. He took a few deep breaths before finally giving in. Forget it. Get her a healer, Lucas said, sounding almost defeated. Chapter 7. Lucas lounged on the basement couch, casually sipping his coffee. His eyes stayed fixed on the surveillance screen, watching the lifeless body in the room. A quiet thrill of vengeance stirred in his chest. Evelyn, you got what's coming to you, he thought. But as he studied my gaunt frame, another thought crossed his mind. If I swallowed my pride and admitted my mistakes, he'd take me away from there. The beachfront villa was empty, after all, and once I'd recovered, he could bring me there to rest. He was sure I'd love it. Thought had barely taken root when the healer emerged from the room, his voice shaking. Alpha, Luna's injuries were too severe. Her body couldn't handle the potion on top of her existing wounds. She's gone. What? Lucas went rigid, as if struck by lightning, his whole body locking up. His eyes burned crimson, brimming with disbelief. No way. You must have made a mistake. You call yourself a healer. He kicked over the coffee table before him. Glass shattered across the floor. His men dropped to their knees, trembling at the outburst. But Lucas looked hollow, muttering like a madman, No, you're all useless. I'll take Evelyn to the chief healer. the chief healer will save her. Like a man possessed, he scooped up my lifeless body and charged out the door. The guards moved to stop him, but the fury radiating from him stopped them cold. None dared to step in his path. He barreled toward pack headquarters like a force of nature, sending pedestrians scattering in every direction. When Beta Oliver caught sight of Lucas in this frenzied state, his voice boomed with fury. "Lucas! Get a hold of yourself. Stop this madness now." But Lucas, lost in his turmoil, paid no attention to Oliver's shouts. He only clutched me tighter, tears streaking down his face as he gasped, "Don't be scared, Evelyn. I'll get you home soon." When Lucas returned to the estate, he had a preservation chamber ready for me. It was a large room, its walls covered in pictures of us together. Carefully, he laid me on the bed and lay beside me. "Evelyn, this is all my fault. But it's all right, I won't leave you again. I'll stay with you forever." From that day forward, people whispered that the once mighty, unshakable Alpha had gone mad, spending his days speaking to a corpse. Again and again, the pack sent advisors to reason with Lucas, pleading with him not to let personal feelings undermine the pack's greater good. But Lucas was a changed man, unmoved, indifferent, deaf to every appeal. Wave after wave of advisors came, only to be turned away with cold dismissal. Just as everyone was at their wits' end, Isabella stepped forward. Seeing Lucas lost in memories with that lifeless body day after day, as if he no longer had any will to live, she took action. While he slept, she set the entire room on fire. In the roaring flames, the long-delayed burial was finally forced. The body was reduced to ashes, along with the entire estate. Lucas jerked awake from his dreams, only to be restrained by his own men. Lucas' eyes bulged with rage, but Isabella only fluttered her lashes, her innocence a carefully crafted lie. "Lucas, I'm doing this for you. Only this way can Evelyn truly rest in peace. Get lost." Without his men holding him back, Lucas would have torn her apart with his bare hands. He couldn't hear a thing at that moment. The grief was too much, smothering everything else. But Isabella kept talking, blind to his fury. "Lucas, if Evelyn were still alive, she'd understand my decision." Before she could finish, Lucas spun toward her, his gaze so deadly it was like he was staring at a corpse. The words shriveled in Isabella's throat. The man in front of her, eyes bloodshot, face twisted with something demonic, wasn't the Lucas she knew. Fear stole her voice. Isabella forced herself to stay composed as she stammered, "Why, you haven't forgotten who stood by you during your darkest days, all right, Lucas?" Lucas turned away at the mention of the past, his eyes flashing with deep regret and bitterness. He finally saw the truth. She was a viper to her core. He knew it was already unforgivable that he'd trusted her lies and helped her ruin me. Now, she couldn't even bear to let my lifeless body remain. Only then did he realize how disgusting Isabella's tearful act truly was, especially compared to my generosity and kindness. Lucas lost his parents as a pup in a werewolf hunter massacre. If it hadn't been for Isabella taking him in, he never would have spent all those years helping her carry out her atrocities. But in the end, he was the one who got me killed, and he should pay for that. If the old Lucas had even a shred of humanity left in him, now he was nothing but a soulless lone wolf, holed up in pack territory and refusing to see anyone. The moonlight flower was my favorite, so he filled the entire garden with them, blooms that shimmered silver under the moon. I loved the ancient pack legends, so he rebuilt a moonlit altar just for me. He remembered every moment we shared in the territory, how I'd watch him train the young werewolves at dawn, stitch herbal sachets for him, and dance for him under the moonlight. Those tender memories cut through his heart like blades, and regret swallowed him in a crushing tide. And so, Lucas waited at the moonlit altar day after day, as if that alone could bring me back. Chapter 8. I never thought I'd see Lucas again. After fleeing his territory, I brought Sarah, badly wounded, north until exhaustion finally forced me to stop in a hidden valley. At the time, I was certain we'd both die there. But luck was on our side. We stumbled upon a powerful healer living in seclusion, Maximilian Baylor, a master of medicine and ancient witchcraft. His gentle, compassionate gaze gave me hope. Under his care, Sarah slowly recovered. And I was fortunate enough to become his student. During those 3 years secluded in the valley, I devoted myself to mastering every healing technique, modern medicine and traditional remedies. I never allowed myself to slack off, not even for a moment. Even Sarah, who watched me studying day and night, ended up picking up some basic medical skills along the way. One day, I had just gone out to gather herbs when a pack patrol surrounded me. The warrior in front barked, "Hey! You're the one from the valley, right?" Before I could answer, a deeper voice growled, "Mind your damn manners." I turned and saw a pack of werewolves circling a tall, lean figure. His face was gaunt, but he still carried the sharp, commanding presence of an alpha. It was Lucas. My chest tightened, and I instinctively ducked my head, turning away to avoid him. But as if he was sensing me, his gaze sliced through the crowd and locked onto mine. Something must have triggered his instincts. A flicker of confusion crossed his eyes, like he recognized my scent but couldn't be sure, not with my face hidden behind the mask. I quickened my pace, eager to put the trouble behind me. But his voice followed, calm and measured. "Young lady, there's no need to be afraid. We've only come to find the healer of this valley. Isabella's pup is having a severe allergic reaction. His life is hanging by a thread. I've heard the healer here is unmatched, and I beg for his help to save the pup." So, it was still about Isabella. A quiet scoff escaped me. Keeping my voice low, I answered, "I'm afraid you've wasted your trip. My mentor walked away from it all ages ago. He's been living in seclusion ever since. To him, worldly turmoil was nothing but a passing shadow." It wasn't a lie. Maximilian had withdrawn from the world years ago, dedicating himself to deeper medical study. He'd grown tired of the endless squabbles between the packs. The fact that he'd saved Sarah and me 3 years ago was purely a fortunate twist of fate. Lucas didn't let up. In an instant, the edge of a blade was at my throat. "Enough talking. Take us to your mentor, now." My chest clenched, and I instinctively moved to step back, but then my vision cleared instantly. He'd ripped the mask from my face. A sudden gust of wind rushed past, leaving me fully exposed. Time seemed to freeze. Lucas' pupils shrank to pinpricks as he stared at me, shock crashing over him like a violent wave, swallowing him whole. He stood frozen, as if the moonstone's power had pinned him in place, his lips trembling. After what felt like an eternity, he finally choked out the words. "Evelyn, is that you?" His voice was so quiet, as if afraid to shatter the dreamlike moment. My heart lurched. Clenching my jaw, I quickly pulled the mask back over my face. "You've got the wrong person," I shot back, my voice icy. Chapter 9. But Lucas didn't back down. In an instant, he closed the gap between us. Panic and desperation filled his eyes, erasing every trace of an alpha's commanding presence. He moved like a cast-off wolf, every gesture tinged with submission and hesitation. "Don't shut me out, Evelyn. Please," he murmured, his hands lifting slightly as if to reach for me. But he froze just before his fingers could brush my coat, afraid I'd hate him even more for it. I turned away, refusing to look at him. Those bitter memories returned, relentless as the tide. "Move, Lucas. I don't want to see you." My voice came out cold and resolute. But he stood there as if he hadn't heard, his eyes bloodshot, tears brimming but refusing to fall. "Evelyn, I've regretted what I did every day for the past 3 years. I was so wrong. Please, just give me A chance to make it right. His voice cracked with emotion, as if a single nod from me would make him give up everything. Maximilian finally allowed them inside. Isabella's pup had a complex condition, and Maximilian explained that developing a treatment plan would take time. While they waited, Lucas and his group settled into the valley. Lately, Lucas seemed like a changed man. Every morning, he took his men to the herb garden to help with pruning, watering, and fertilizing. He tended to each task meticulously, not a trace of his usual arrogance showing. I watched it all, but it left me completely unmoved. One day, I heard movement outside the door as I was reviewing my treatment notes in my room. Sarah's voice carried in. "Alpha Lucas, you need to leave. My lady doesn't like anyone near her private space." Lucas didn't so much as flinch at the scolding. As soon as he saw me step out, his face brightened with delighted surprise. "Evelyn, were you resting?" I frowned slightly. Before I could say anything, he quickly produced an elegant gift box behind his back. He held it out with both hands, his eyes brimming with nervous hope. "Evelyn, I got this just for you. I remember how much you loved those blueberry pancakes from that bakery in the city. And these rare medical texts, I thought they could help with your research." As he spoke, he kept sneaking hesitant glances at me, as if afraid I'd turn him down. "Evelyn, I know I was wrong. Please, just give me one more chance." Fed up, I cut him off. "Lucas, stop. Yes, these are the same pancakes I loved 3 years ago, but the old me is dead. She died the night you destroyed our future with your own hands. Because of your blind trust in Isabella, she was disfigured, lost her pup, and nearly burned alive in that fire. You want another chance? Well, who's going to give me mine? When you didn't love me, I was just dead weight. Now that you've changed your mind, I'm just supposed to come crawling back. What the hell do you take me for, Lucas?" After everything that had happened, I didn't want anything to do with him anymore, so I turned and closed the door. Lucas didn't visit me again after that. He only saw me before we left for the pack. When we reached the Beta's estate, Isabella was seated on the couch, clutching her frail pup and crying. The second she saw Lucas, her face brightened with a sweet smile, but the instant her eyes landed on me, an icy hardness flickered in her gaze. Before anyone could even exchange greetings, Isabella immediately made things difficult. With a practiced grace, she smoothed her impeccably tailored dress and strode toward me, her eyes filled with arrogance and disdain. Her voice was dripping with command as she snapped, "You lowly thing. How dare you not bow your head in the presence of someone of my rank?" I was wearing my mask, so she didn't recognize me. This little act was just her usual desperate attempt to assert dominance in front of an audience. She was still as impatient as ever. Before I could say a word, someone dashed in front of me, shielding me in a flash. I looked up. It was Lucas. His expression was dark, almost frightening, and his voice cut like ice. "Isabella, don't push your luck. This is the last time I'll help you." The words hit her like a slap, and her face twisted in shock. Chapter 10. Isabella's eyes widened in disbelief. Lucas was tearing into her publicly without a shred of mercy. Her lips trembled as she searched for something to salvage her dignity. But the words caught in her throat when she met his icy stare. Lucas turned slightly, his gaze locking onto mine behind my mask. I couldn't see his eyes clearly, but his concern was unmistakable. "Don't worry. I've got you," he murmured. Then he turned back to Isabella, his voice sharpening to a razor's edge. "I went to great lengths to bring this healer here for your pup. And you're making a scene. Are you trying to keep your pup from getting better?" Isabella's face drained of color, then flooded with crimson. She caught the odd glances from those around her and knew if she kept making a scene, she'd only humiliate herself further. So she forced a smile and put on a gentle tone. I was just so worried about my pup. Don't mind me, Lucas. Lucas snorted, ignored her, and turned to me instead. Healer, come take a look at the pup. I gave a slight nod and followed him to the bedroom. After nearly a month of treatment, the pup's allergies had finally cleared up. It was time for me to return to the valley. I was just about to get in the car when everything went black. I opened my eyes to find Lucas sitting by the bed, his eyes tender as they met mine. Seeing me awake, he smiled and said, "Evelyn, you're finally up. I made your favorite meat pie." My stomach dropped. I glanced around and recognized the familiar room. I was back at his estate. I glared at him. "Why did you bring me back here?" Lucas frowned slightly, helplessness flickering in his eyes. After a pause, he spoke slowly. "Evelyn, I know you're set on leaving, but I can't just let you go. If you walk away now, I'm afraid your mentor might." "Lucas. How could you be so vile?" He looked away, unable to meet my eyes, but his tone remained firm. "Evelyn, I just want you with me. Stay, and I swear I'll keep you safe." Anger flared inside me, but I had no choice. For now, I pushed down my urge to run and followed him out of the room. Walking through the garden, I noticed the layout was exactly as I remembered. Someone had even planted my favorite moonlight flowers. A soft breeze rustled the silver petals, making them shimmer under the moonlight like something from a dream. But now, the beauty of it all felt like a cruel joke. That night, Lucas had the kitchen prepare an extravagant dinner, every dish once a favorite of mine. The moment he turned away, I quietly poured the wolfbane extract I'd prepared into his wine glass. He turned back with a bowl in hand, completely unaware, and set the soup in front of me with a gentle smile. "Evelyn, try this. See if you still like it." Fighting back my nerves, I gave a small nod, then picked up the glass and held it out to him. "Lucas, since this is a kind of reunion, let's have a drink." Without hesitation, he took the glass and drank it all in one go. A moment later, the wolfbane took effect. Lucas staggered, his face twisting in shock, pain, and disbelief. "Evelyn, you poisoned me." Seizing the moment, I stood and grabbed the silver dinner knife from the table, pressing it to his throat. My voice was icy. "It's not poison. It's just something to weaken you. You brought this on yourself, Lucas." Then, step by step, I forced him toward the exit. No one dared to intervene. Once outside the estate, I shoved him to the ground. Lucas stared at me, his eyes full of pain and desperation. "Evelyn, do you have to be so heartless? What will it take for you to forgive me?" I drew a slow breath. "I want everyone who hurt me to pay, especially Isabella. If you're really sorry, show me. Until then, there's nothing left to say." Without another word, I turned and strode away, refusing to look back. Chapter 11. A month later, the alarm system outside the valley suddenly blared, its shrill screech piercing the air. Hearing it from inside the valley, I felt a surge of foreboding tighten in my chest. I rushed outside, then froze at the sight before me. There stood Lucas, battered and bruised, with Isabella and a group of his men, all in equally wretched shape, gathered just outside the protective ward. He swayed unsteadily, his dark shirt drenched in blood. Gruesome wounds crisscrossed his body, each still bleeding and staining the ground beneath him crimson. Yet even as his breathing grew faint, his eyes burned with stubborn determination, fixed fiercely on the valley ahead. Isabella walked beside him, her once delicate face now marred by horrific scars. Wolfsbane had ravaged her skin, leaving it in a grotesque state. Her head hung low, eyes filled with regret and agony. She trembled, every trace of her former arrogance gone. Lucas' men fared no better, many were so badly wounded they could barely stand. When Lucas spotted me, his pale lips strained into a weak smile. He rasped, "Evelyn, I brought them to make things right." Before he could finish, a violent cough seized him, and he spat up a mouthful of blood. Isabella fell to her knees with a thud, her voice breaking as she sobbed. "Evelyn, I was wrong. I let jealousy blind me. That's why I hurt you. Please, forgive me this once, for the sake of what we used to be." Her hand shook as she reached for the scars on her face, but she froze halfway, as if she couldn't bear to face the truth. Seeing my silence, Lucas spoke up with difficulty. "Evelyn, if you still hate me, then take the knife. Stab me as many times as you need. I won't resist today. Just let it all out." He slowly drew a silver dagger from his pocket and held it out to me. The blade down, but at the last moment, I turned it aside, missing his vitals and slicing only a shallow cut across his shoulder. "Go. And never come near me again." A flicker of surprise crossed Lucas' eyes. He parted his lips as if to speak, but the blood loss overcame him before he could utter a word. With his men's help, both he and Isabella were carried back. Eventually, news came from the pack that Isabella, who had once been so full of herself, had lost her mind after her face was disfigured. She spiraled into madness until one day, while walking her pup near the pool, she slipped and fell in. No one noticed until it was too late. The stress aged her mate, Oliver, almost overnight. He gave up his position as beta at pack headquarters and shut himself away, refusing visitors. As for Lucas, after apologizing to me that day, he finally let go of his feelings for me. He asked to be released from the pack, chose the life of a rogue, and never returned for the rest of his life. Before he left, he sent me a letter. "My dearest Luna, I failed you in this life. If there's another, I'll spend it making things right.